a lot of the people that are hiring the Gen Zs come from, they're in their 40s and 50s. Like that's the generation. They're setting the culture. They're setting the job descriptions. So if you flip over to the new generation coming into the workforce, which is going to be a huge generation, this generation brings change. They bring empathy. They bring communication styles that Gen Xers didn't have. They've all grown up on their phone, right? They all collaborate. They're all into social media, social marketing. So I would say, bring your energy and bring sort of the knowledge to the table that will push change and make the Gen Xers sort of soften up a little bit.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Hello and welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today I am with Mark Zides, the founder and CEO of Core Access Consulting, an award-winning learning and development and talent management firm. He is also the founder of Katama, an agency specializing in sales strategy, marketing, and customer success for small to medium-sized businesses, and Recipe, a digital marketing agency for rental event equipment companies. He has a let's go mentality, followed with a positive and all-inclusive demeanor, because Mark wants everyone to enjoy what they do, where they are, and the experiences they have. Mark is a connector who loves to coach and mentor, network, and find opportunities for those he sees potential in, all while maintaining a strong family balance with his wife, 3 kids, and 2 dogs.
In today's world where we have so many different companies and so many different types of companies and different leadership styles and different growth opportunities, and there's a lot of, it's very confusing as to how to internally manage an organization as a Gen Z, how to grow our own careers and the sort of the strategy that we should employ, and how do we get everybody in the company that we're already at on board with different learning strategies. So you've had a significant hand to deal with these different topics, and I'm excited to sort of unpack these things with you. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Excited to talk to you about some of these important topics.
Well, so let's start with Core Access, and tell me a little bit about the formation of Core Access. Today, close to 100 people working with organizations, organizational development. What is Core Access, and sort of the mission that you set out on when you founded it?
Yeah, so we're a combination of really talented and smart learning experts, instructional designers, program managers that build learning experiences for any company, large, small, startup, global. And the content areas are related to any function within an organization, but predominantly we do a lot of new hire, onboarding, types of soft skills oriented training. And those experiences are a combination of online learning, so your typical mobile, learning or your e-learning, and also, virtual learning, so in a modality like this, through a Zoom or through sort of an interaction this way. We're hoping to get back post-pandemic into kind of classroom-based training, the old sort of face-to-face, but, the majority of our work is delivered virtually now anyway, and always has been for the last, 13 years.
Why is it so relevant or such a big question, this idea of developing the soft skills, for example, for onboarding? Why do organizations need a third party like Core Access to come and provide these services?
Yeah, great question. I mean, a lot of these companies have the capabilities in-house, to deliver this training, whether it's through HR or learning and development. Oftentimes they want to bring in experts from the outside that bring some best practices, bring some unique points of view, bring some, different types of experiences for the learners. So whether it's, video-based learning or virtual reality nowadays, companies are looking for augmented or virtual, as well as, some what we call impactful learning experiences, right? So, exercises or scenarios, things like that, where internal companies that have these organizations don't necessarily have the capabilities or the bandwidth to develop these solutions on their own. So as a services provider, we're that nice, connection or nice partner for these companies to execute on these programs and then roll them out to their onboarding or to their new hires.
Mm-hmm. How much is this, the specific or tailored to a given company? So, strategical when you're looking at these types of questions that you're solving, how generic are these solutions that they're able to be replicated from organization to organization versus, really creating a tailor-made solution for each specific one?
Yeah, great question. So every company is different, right? Sounds cliche, but certainly we are a bespoke, custom content development firm. So companies come to us with a combination of their proprietary content, some of our content, and then we sort of bring that together through a learning experience or a learning platform. The company may have a learning management system or LXP, to host and produce and push out the content, or they may ask us to do that. So it all depends on where the company is from a technology perspective as well as a content standpoint. But in general, most companies, when we talk about onboarding or new hire, have their own process and have their own content. But what they want to do is sort of bring some other skill development or leadership development work or content into the program.
I love it. Okay, and now looking internally within Core Access as you're growing the organization and you're providing these services, I imagine that it's a little bit different than running a tech startup when you have about 50 engineers all contributing to a code base. Here you have individuals that are representing Core Access with clients and with different solutions, and there's a lot of trust and internal leadership that needs to happen. What is that internal leadership like for you, and how do you think about it strategically as a critical part within Core Access? So
we are as good as our people, and we have an incredible team of leaders, project managers, instructional designers. Think about us as a creative agency for learning. So we are a one-stop shop for all things L&D, and we want our clients to come to us with any type of learning or training challenge they may have. And what we want to do is solve for those challenges. And as a services company, just like any other management development or management consulting company, we have a very high touch model where, always, servicing our clients to the highest degree. We call it white glove service or VIP. So we want our clients to trust us as advisors to give them the best advice, whether they're going to execute internally or they want to outsource it to us as a business partner to build these learning solutions for them.
I mean, and that's I can definitely assume that as well. And I'm wondering, how do you get the actual people that you're delegating some responsibility to? You mentioned almost 100 employees. Each person here, represents Core Access in these different situations. How do you ensure quality at this stage? How do you ensure, because at the end, they're not just representing Core Access, they're also representing themselves. And how do they know, where is the line between themselves and Core Access's strategy? And at the end, they are both themselves and Core Access.
Right. Great question. So, a little shout out to, my VP of talent management, Erica Franzen, who's been with us for 10 years. And what she does is she oversees, recruits, manages, networks, all of these great practitioners. So it's a combination of people that we have full-time, as well as a very close network of experts that we've worked with for an average of 10 years. So Erica and her team do an incredible job managing that, I'd call it bench of experts, right, that we plug in or we will place at certain clients, depending on what their client need is. And then Christy DiLoredo is our VP of custom solutions and strategy. And she also has a team of, project managers, Q&A people, instructional designers, e-learning developers, voiceover artists, the whole creative aspect of building these solutions under her umbrella. And Erica and Christy work incredibly well together every day, making sure our clients are really happy and they're getting the right people at the right time to build these solutions for our clients.
So it sounds like one of the important pieces you're mentioning is the matching process, is understanding who do you even have in your network, and selecting the people that are actually relevant, and we'll do a good job here. Let's transition a little bit to talking about career decision making and Generation Z. This is something that you obviously been thinking about for a while with your recent book. What is sort of the big pain point that Gen Zs have in regards to their thinking process on careers?
Yeah, I'm excited to say my first book came out, published by Arm & Laird Press last week, and it's getting some rave reviews. And thanks to my incredible team and network to help make that happen over the last 6 months. You know, what we see in the marketplace, because we receive feedback from our clients on what they're seeing from a workplace gap perspective when these Gen Zs or Gen Ys enter the workforce. And what they're seeing is that they're not prepared in general, right? So generally speaking, you know, they don't have the skills or, you know, some of the behaviors necessary to make an immediate impact at an organization. And what they need to do, and what this book talks about, is providing them with some coaching, some insight, some guidance on how to prepare themselves as they enter the workforce, as early career, people, right? So they bring different skills and different mindset to organizations, much more than, for example, I did. I'm a Gen X. The Gen Zers, care more about changing the world. They're very much empathetic. They operate and communicate much differently than other generations did. So what companies are telling us is that we need to figure out how to make sure everyone collaborates effectively and works well. And the companies need to adapt too, right? So when a company hires, this generation, they need to be able to empower and motivate and make sure that they're enabling these folks coming into the workplace to be successful.
Fantastic. So what are a few questions that that you're observing that Gen Zs often find themselves asking later on, or are not intentional enough with answering, that leaves them confused? So if I'm a Gen Z and I'm now preparing to enter the workforce, what are some of those non-trivial questions that I may be asking myself that if I were to be very intentional about them, I would have a much easier time and a much more successful time navigating through.
Right. So I think there's a certain step process, right? So my book talks about PACE, which is prepare, apply, commit, and evaluate. But what I would say is, if I could break that question down into two pieces, one would be make sure that you're preparing for the right company and the right role. So do your research, make sure that you're prepared, because again, interviewing, Michael, is much different than it was just a few years ago. Students coming out of college are interviewing, through a Zoom, right? There's not as much face-to-face. Make a strong first impression, for example. But once they get into the workforce, they have to really do a better job, from what I see and what we're hearing, advocating for themselves. Put yourself out there, sort of manage and communicate in a way that is, I don't want to say promoting your success or what you do, but make sure you're asking your manager, what else can I be doing? Or join communities in an organization that can drive change and impact throughout the organization. So in a virtual workplace, it's much more difficult to do that and make those connections. And I would just coach them on making sure that they're staying connected with their incoming class, with their cohorts, as well as their managers and their teams, to make sure that what they're doing is pushing the agenda of their team or themselves up through the organization.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the question of preparedness, in today's world, very volatile. We have, we're going through what some are calling the Great Resignation. Part of this idea, and also career change, is this idea of being opportunistic and realizing that you have opportunities that may come at times when you don't even expect them to. And sometimes you need to jump on an opportunity without being prepared.
Yeah, great question. So I'm okay with the gig economy. I believe that's not going to change, and it's sort of the workplace and it's the future of work. That said, I would just say that I'd like to see these young and career individuals be more patient. Really try to reflect a little bit and figure out, is it the right time to make this move, or am I being a little hasty? Should I wait and maybe give myself another 6 months? Should I go to my manager or the leader in the organization and say, if you're not happy in the role, and maybe you can pivot, maybe you can be a little agile and say, look, I don't love this finance role, but you know what? Do you mind if I try marketing or supply chain or something else? And you can have different roles within the same organization. You don't have to necessarily jump into another organization to actually get that experience. You can, what I believe in is if you find the right company, the right culture, the right mission that has the right values that map to your own, you should invest in that company and give it a shot. Give it longer than 6 months or a year. Now, if the company is not investing back in, to you, that's where you need to use the feedback and give this company and your leaders some, open communication to let them know where you're struggling and where you want to move up in your career. But I would just say, the point is just be a little bit more patient.
I love it. And so what I'm hearing is that part of it is this idea that let's differentiate between what we do and who we're doing it with. And we have to sort of answer these two questions separately in order to really get fulfillment and make the best of our career. And what you're saying is that oftentimes, due to impatience or the lack of differentiation between these two elements, a lot of people may not be doing what they want to be doing. And they're also giving up on the people they're doing it with, even though they may really want to be with these people. But this clear association that a company is essentially what you do in this company, that's not it, right? If you're saying be patient, invest in the people that you're around, navigate and pivot to find what you want to be doing within this company. But at the end, it's the people around you that will allow you to do this navigation.
Correct.
And to move around.
And I feel that
right?
one of the most important skills that the Gen Zers or even the young millennials can learn is learn how to network, learn how to build not just your personal brand, but the people that you want to associate yourself with in business. So find a mentor. It could be many mentors, right? Because what will happen is in 3 years or 5 years, you may work at a couple of different companies, and those are the people and the relationships you establish early in your career that will really help you further on in your career. Hit the goals, hit the trajectories that you set out for yourself.
Right. What are some other questions that we should be asking ourselves as we're approaching different challenges throughout our career? So let's say we have we're in a great company, we're doing exactly what we want to be doing, we're actually advocating for ourselves within the organization. Now what? What are we faced with?
I mean, it's a really interesting question. I mean, I feel that every company is different, right? I mean, if you're in a Silicon Valley company, it's probably moving, or a tech company, it's moving a lot faster than, let's say, a bank, right? So I would just say, that each individual needs to evaluate their own career and where they want to be. As cliche as it sounds, where do you want to be in 3 years or 5 years? What I've coached early in career professionals on is, think back to your college experience. When you came in as a freshman, everything was green, everything was new. You didn't know what to expect. When you were a senior and you look back those 3.5, 4 years, and you're a big person on campus, you have a much different perspective. You have a much different experience. Like, wow, I can't believe that I was not doing enough when I was a freshman or sophomore. Now you have much more experience and much more perspective. Think about that as you go into the workplace. In 4 years, you're gonna have a lot more perspective and experience and knowledge than you did the prior 3 or 4 years. So if you think about, sort of not just life, but the workplace in that regard, it really might, shed some light into kind of what it takes to grow your career or what trajectory you want to take as an individual.
Right. And so fundamentally, if we're looking at the differences between the way Gen Zs perhaps are experiencing the world and Gen X, for example, if you had to really distill it to a few key human factors, changes in the way that we experience life and fulfillment, what are
so this might be a little controversial, but I believe that Gen X values grit, and what I mean by that is we're a little bit tougher when it comes to the way that we look at business and the way we work with people. And I'm sort of a blue collar, typical, grew up in that way with my parents and whatnot. But a lot of the people that are hiring the Gen Zs come from, they're in their 40s and 50s. Like, that's the generation. They're setting the culture. They're setting the job descriptions. So if you flip over to the new generation coming into the workforce, which is going to be a huge generation, this generation brings change. They bring empathy. They bring communication styles that Gen Xers didn't have. They've all grown up on their phone, right? They all collaborate. They're all into social media, social marketing. So I would say, bring your energy and bring sort of the knowledge to the table that will push change and make the Gen Xers sort of soften up a little bit, right? So I think there's an interesting dichotomy between the two generations. But that said, I believe that, everyone needs to be more open-minded. Everyone needs to be able to handle adversity. One example I always talk about is a lot of times Gen Zs don't know how to handle a difficult conversation because as they grew up, they were never put into a difficult conversation because a lot of times you could just text your way out of a difficult conversation. You didn't have that face-to-face difficult interaction where in the workplace that happens. So if you didn't have that experience and you couldn't fail or you couldn't, do something when you were younger, it has to translate when you get into workplace. And Gen Xers will look at that and say, well, they don't know how to communicate, or they have a bad stereotype that, they're soft or they don't take criticism well. And again, they have to debunk the stereotype. That's the perception that some of these, Gen Zers have coming into workplace, and they have to do whatever they can to change that perception. It's just reality, in this sort of world that we're in now.
Incredible. Mark, I really want to thank you, and I love the insights and the way that you're thinking about this. I think there's some nuggets here to take, and especially definitely for myself, patience, this idea of fulfillment, grit, advocating, being intentional, and differentiating between people and the position itself. And at the end, then we all want to live fulfilled lives, and we want to do our best and to feel like we're being motivated and we're working with the people that we want to work with. And I think those are some fundamental questions we need to be asking ourselves. And I definitely agree with you that a lot of times those are the most difficult questions, right? The most difficult conversations are the ones we have internally about what do we want to do and why do we want to do it and how much do we want to do it and with who. And it seems like a lot of times we can easily forget to ask those questions and run away from them and just go with the path that was decided for us. So Mark, thank you very, very much. Stay safe and stay healthy and continue making great impact with Core Access, and best of luck with the very recent launch of your book. Congratulations. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you having me. Thanks.
You.